You know, when we picture a biblical meal, we tend to think of some big feast, right? Maybe a roasted lamb on a special occasion. But the everyday reality? Well, that was something else entirely. It was a world governed by a set of food rules so specific, so detailed, that what you ate literally defined who you were.
Take this for example. That's not a suggestion from some ancient survival guide. No, that is divine law, straight out of the book of Leviticus. And believe it or not, it's just one tiny piece of this huge, complex food system that shaped the life of an entire people.
Because in the world of the Bible, food was never, ever just about fuel. What you ate, and maybe even more importantly, what you didn't eat, was a constant, daily statement. It was a declaration of who you were, where you belonged, and what you believed in.
So what did they actually eat? We're going to break down the complete biblical diet, from the very first menu God gave to humanity, all the way to the specific laws that set a nation apart. And as you'll see, every single meal was a statement of faith.
Let's start right at the beginning, because the very first diet described in the Bible wasn't for one group of people. It was a universal menu for all of creation.
Right there in Genesis, God lays it all out. The original diet for humanity was entirely plant-based. Every plant, every fruit, every herb that had a seed, that was it. That was what the text calls meat, which originally just meant food.
And what's really fascinating is what comes next. The very same diet, every green herb for meat, was also given to all the animals and birds. So in this original ideal state of creation, humans and animals were basically on the same meal plan. There was this kind of beautiful dietary harmony.
But that original green world, it didn't last. A massive, world-changing event reshaped the entire planet, and with it, the human diet. After the Great Flood, God issues a completely new command.
And you can see the shift right here. Before the flood, it's exclusively plants. But after the flood, the menu expands a lot. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. This is the first time in the entire biblical story that humans are officially given permission to eat animals. But here's the catch. With this new permission came the very first dietary rule, and it is a huge one. You can eat meat, but you absolutely cannot consume its blood. This law, connecting life directly to blood, becomes a core principle for everything that comes after.
So now, let's fast forward. The story starts to zoom in, focusing not on all of humanity, but on one specific people. And their diet becomes tied to one very specific place, the Promised Land.
You've heard this phrase, right? A land flowing with milk and honey. Well, it wasn't just pretty poetry about being rich. It was a literal description. It was a land perfect for raising goats and sheep for milk, and a place where date honey was everywhere. It was basically an advertisement for the food that was waiting for them.
And the Bible gets even more specific than that. It lays out the 7 core foods, the 7 species that defined this land: wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and honey. These weren't just random crops, they were the agricultural foundation of ancient Israel.
And of those 7, 2 were absolute king: wheat and barley. You see, bread wasn't just part of a meal back then, it was the meal. Everything else, a few lentils, some beans, maybe a little goat cheese or some olives, that was just what you ate with your bread.
Okay, so now we get to the most detailed and, let's be honest, the most famous part of the biblical diet. These are the laws that form the basis of what we call kosher today. And these rules, they didn't just create a menu. They built a wall of identity, separating Israel from every other nation on earth. So for land animals, the rule laid out in Leviticus is crystal clear, and it has 2 parts. To be considered clean or edible, an animal had to pass a 2-part test. It had to chew the cud, and it had to have a completely split hoof. Animals like cows, sheep, and goats, they check both boxes.
And the Bible even gives us examples of animals that fail the test. A camel, for instance, chews the cud, but it doesn't have a split hoof. A pig has the split hoof, but it doesn't chew the cud. Since they didn't meet both criteria, they were off limits. They were unclean. When it comes to creatures in the water, the rule was even simpler. If it lives in the water and it has both fins and scales, you can eat it. Simple as that.
Now, this meant that a lot of what we might eat today was strictly forbidden. Things like shrimp, crab, lobster, all out. Eels, too. The text is incredibly direct about it, calling anything in the water without both fins and scales an abomination.
And for birds, things were a little different. Instead of a simple rule, the Bible just gives a long list of forbidden species. But if you look at the list, a clear pattern emerges. Birds of prey and scavengers, like eagles, owls, and vultures, were not to be eaten.
So, we've seen what they ate and what they didn't. But the real question, the most important question, is why? Why all these specific and sometimes strange rules? Well, the answer has almost nothing to do with our modern ideas about health or nutrition.
The Bible gives its own reason, right here. You shall be holy, for I am holy. Holiness, in this way of thinking, means separation. It means order. Think back to the creation story. God brings order to the world by separating things, light from dark, land from water. These food laws were a way for people to reflect that divine order in their daily lives. Clean animals fit neatly into categories. Unclean animals were the ones that blurred the lines, like a pig that has hooves like a cow but doesn't chew cud like one. They were seen as a violation of God's perfect order.
And this is the key takeaway. Every single meal became a conscious choice. It was an act of worship, performed 3 times a day. Choosing to follow these rules wasn't just about blind obedience. It was a physical, tangible reminder of their special relationship with God. It was a daily declaration of who they were.
Now, all of this might seem pretty distant. But you know what? The legacy of this ancient world is still with us, in the very foods they ate. We can actually connect with this history through taste. So let's make this practical. Here are 3 biblical foods you can easily try this week.
First up, unleavened bread. The Bible calls it the bread of affliction. It's a powerful reminder of the escape from Egypt, and it's incredibly simple to make. Just flour, oil, and salt. Second, olives and olive oil. Remember the land of olive? Oil was everything. It was food, it was light for their lamps, it was used for anointing, it was a symbol of peace. And third, figs. Eating a fig was a taste of peace and prosperity. The ultimate image of a good life was to sit safely under his fig tree.
So what's the big picture here? It's a vision of a world where food is so much more than just what's on your plate. It's theology. It's community. It's your entire identity. It's a world where every single meal matters, and where you may, in fact, eat the locust after his kind.